to English because now we're going to talk to Nancy Friedman from kitviews.com. So how are you, Nancy?
I'm good. How are you?
Thank you. And I always say the best thing about these trips are not the cars or like the technology, the people you meet on the road, because you never know who you're going to meet. And like by chance, I had the great opportunity to drive with Nancy since yesterday. So we've been enjoying the Toyotas.
Yes.
Having fun with them, right?
Maybe more than Toyota wanted us to.
Exactly. So for example, Nancy, you're from New York, right?
Yes.
And so you don't drive too much.
No.
But you have like a little bit of cool stories recently about cars, right?
Well, I just recently bought my first car. I've had a car, but it's the first time I've ever bought a car.
Yeah.
Yes, ever. First time I ever bought a car. I am well into my 40s. It was it was a very interesting experience. Mostly not in a really good way. But I did end up buying I didn't even know this was a term, a certified pre-owned vehicle, which I still like to call a used car.
Yeah, that's a marketing thing.
Yes, definitely.
So you said it wasn't the most enjoyable experience. Tell us about that, because I think it's very interesting to hear from someone who doesn't have that experience, then goes for the first time ever, and then like gets this cultural shock almost, right?
Right. I mean, look, there's a reason that used car salesman is a euphemism for
something bad.
Something bad. And so you go in there already feeling defensive.
Yeah.
And they know you're defensive. And so it's right off the bat, it's this uncomfortable situation. I wasn't going to buy a new car because I didn't want to spend for a new car. I didn't think it was worth it.
And living in New York, you don't use it that much, right?
No. I mean, my 14-year-old car that we traded in had less than 100,000 miles on it. So I just didn't like having to negotiate. I didn't like feeling like if I didn't get a certain amount off. I read all different sites. I was looking at She Buys Cars, and I was looking for, women driving cars and trying to figure out the best way to negotiate. My husband's even less knowledgeable about cars than I am. And so I did my research a lot online about pricing and how much I should be able to haggle and where I could get the money off. And I just don't like that whole process. I want to go in and buy something. I don't see why it should take 6 hours.
I know. And I guess because you were trading your car, it was a used car. So, I mean, that probably made the process a little bit longer. But still, I mean, it's a bad process. And I think as we were talking over breakfast with some of the Toyota executives here, a lot of companies, a lot of manufacturers are putting a lot of money into trying to ease that process, which is not going to be easy, I don't think.
Well, yesterday during the presentation, they were talking about how on the new Camry they moved, the air conditioning over, the controls over 3 inches towards the driver, and they moved some other knob 5 millimeters to the left. And I was thinking, you spend all this time on this little minutia, but when it comes down to it, you have to go in and buy it. Yeah. And that experience does seem to have been ignored. I think the problem is we're sort of expecting to negotiate for a car. We don't like it, but that's how it's always been. So to really change that, to make it this is the price you get, people are going to feel like they're being ripped off. Yeah.
And the other thing is that like so many other factors, personal factors that make you decide for one car or another. Like in your case, I think you were telling me about your teenage boy who is like growing an inch a day or something like that.
Right. He's grown about 7 inches in the last year and a half.
Wow.
And our main decision point was how roomy the back seat was.
Yeah.
Because he's growing, and he's still only growing up, but pretty soon he's going to grow the other way too.
Exactly.
And we needed a big back seat. So, and that, look, I'm sure that I can't be the only person. A lot of people have a lot of kids, so they need a lot of room in the back. That's why there's minivans. But I think that they obviously are looking at the whole process. But to me, that's the final piece. That's your last piece of...
Yeah, which can make it really a bad experience and actually turn some potential customer away from the brand. I mean, and it might be one person having a bad day, but that will ruin that relationship, right?
Right. And I mean, it was nice when we went back to pick up the car. They had a big giant bow on it, and they made it like a present. So that sort of made you feel a little better about it.
It didn't fix everything.
No.
So Nancy, kidviews.com, that's why you're here. I mean, because your site is very unique in many different ways.
Yeah, Kids Views is the only video review and sharing site for kids. There's all sorts of federal regulations around how you can take and share information from kids on the internet, and we follow all those regulations. So kids are not legally allowed to be on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or all those things that they're on anyway. On our site, they're actually allowed. And 90% of what's on the site is whatever comes in, including a whole bunch of car reviews. A lot of kids, like, when they get a new car in their family, it's a big deal.
Exactly. I remember as a kid, the first new car in my family. It's like a vivid memory for me.
It's a big deal. And kids are actually big influencers of what cars parents will buy. They have, believe it or not, 6 to 12-year-olds have $43 billion of their own to spend.
What?
Yeah. Not my kids.
I wasn't part of that.
Right. And then they have sway over, depending on who you believe, somewhere in the neighborhood of $150 billion more.
That's amazing.
Including cars. So they have big opinions. They have opinions about everything. If you have a kid, they have opinions about everything.
And they said only like the kids and drunken people tell the truth, right?
Right. Well, that's actually really interesting. Like when we have a review of the Dodge Caravan by, I think she looks like she's maybe 10 years old, this girl, and she's focused on the number of cup holders. She talks about the number of cup holders in that car over and over, and she has her camera and she shows you this cup holder, that cup holder, this cup holder. So what's interesting to a kid is not necessarily what's going to be interesting to a parent.
So yesterday we drove briefly the new Sienna. The Toyota Sienna has kind of a cool feature. The one that you can yell to the people in the back.
Right. It's the don't turn around and yell at your kids feature. What is it called?
I don't know, something like that. Yeah.
But it's basically you push a button and it sets it. You can speak to them through the speakers in the back of the car without turning around and yelling.
How do you think about that? How do you think kids are gonna like that or not?
It's the shut up and back feature. I think that's what it's called officially. The quiet back there button.
Yeah.
I think that unless they see your face and how angry you are, it's not going to matter. So
and probably because they also like looking at someone, maybe the iPad or something else, like their own phones.
Right.
So they're going to really pay attention if you're like in their faces, right?
It is a really funny feature, though, that somebody thought to do that. Although if you're just to have a conversation, like if you're facing forward, no one can hear you. So that's...
Exactly.
That is helpful.
So kidviews.com, right?
Yep.
And you also have another blog and do some
I have
other
my
things?
own personal blog called FromHipToHousewife.com where I actually sort of chronicled my car buying odyssey.
Yeah.
And you're so nice to me. You didn't bring up our...
Oh, I was coming up. Because yesterday, Nancy, she's from New York again. She doesn't drive much. She's never driven. Oh, I think you told me you
once
briefly
in high school.
One in high school a manual transmission car. So yesterday we tried a little bit, and I took I think it took 18 tries for like 2 successful launches.
But you know what? I was thinking about it. My first successful try was only like the 4th time.
Exactly, and then it took like another 15 to do it again.
I know, then I couldn't do it again. But I decided, first of all, Javier's a very good teacher. Second of all, he doesn't really know me, so he's not frustrated.
Exactly, I cannot yell at you too much.
So that was a good way to learn with basically a stranger who's patient and nice.
So, I mean, I guess you're not going to buy a new car like in maybe another 20 years.
Right.
And it's not going to be a manual transmission car, right?
Although, Javier pointed out something to me yesterday, you did, that because my kids are 14, I have twins, and they're already talking about learning how to drive. And I think I want them to learn how to stick shift because then they can't text.
Yeah, they have their both hands busy.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. I never thought of that.
Excellent. Well, Nancy Friedman from carreviews.com, thank you very much for sharing our time here in Jacksonville with the new 3 models from Toyota. And hopefully I can see you again another trip and they have another manual transmission car and we can give it another try, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Este programa fue una producción de National Latino Broadcasting.